Hi everyone, I'm delighted to welcome Chloe Bullock to episode 3 of Aspects of Design. Chloe is a BIID Registered Interior Designer, but she also has a focus on sustainability, health and cruelty-free specifications. Um, Chloe was also the first interior designer in the UK to be vegandesign.org certified. So I'm really excited to talk to Chloe today. I've got loads of questions for her. So welcome, Chloe. I'm hoping you're going to appear now.
Hello,
Oh,
Nicola.
hello! Hi, hi. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Thank you
Good.
so much for asking me along to this. This is so I've enjoyed the interviews up to now, and I'm really honoured to be part of this. So thanks so much.
Oh, thank you, Chloe. Well, it's an absolute pleasure, but I do think that, in terms of vegan design and sustainability, we're all kind of looking at that now. But I do think, you're, kind of at the forefront of this. You've obviously been doing it for a while. You're obviously passionate about this. So, I just think you're a really, really good person to speak to about it. So, you know,
Oh,
you do say, on your website and, in your kind of Instagram and all of that, that you create animal friendly, human friendly and planet friendly interiors. So, kind of in a nutshell, kind of what does that mean?
well, it's it all sort of stems from my background with the body shop, but so I basically try and design with a lower impact. So the animal friendly is a hang on from the body shop times as well, where we were trying to, with the products that they use, they were trying to avoid animal testing, animal cruelty, animal content into, and they did the same thing with the store fix. So I was part of the retail design team for the company, and I worked there for 10 years. And so that ethos sort of came from there. So kind of there are other things you can specify that don't have those content. And then I heard about the vegan design course and took that and realised that I was the first designer in the UK to take the course. But so that's animal friendly. Human friendly is a kind of spin-off of animal friendly because it's difficult to. There's a lot of health benefits that are there for people. If you're using specifications that are animal friendly, they're the a lot of the natural materials that we thought were the things to use, and I use them as well. Leather, cotton, feathers. They are all very dust harbouring. So by avoiding those, there's a really good health benefit. But I wanted to dig deeper into the sort of healthy specification side of what we specify as designers. And I heard about the Well Building Standard, and there's also the Fitwell certification as well. So they're very kind of similar output, but different approaches. But basically, both of them are looking at a whole project, even from what you eat, right the way through to how you furnish, how you light, what the air is, and lots of air and water quality, all the way through to access to nature, exercise, community. So once I heard about both of those standards, I really wanted to study those. So that's kind of the healthy, and and then the planet friendly. Again, it's sort of the three of them all go hand in hand because you can't really do one without the other. So sustainability again was a huge part of what we did at the body shop, and so just making sure that what we used was as low impact as possible, that timber came from sustainable sources, and that we were, being as keeping things as harmless as possible. Obviously, we're kind of creating interiors, so there's a lot of material being used, but just kind of having those three things in mind as I design is kind of, so that's how I came up with that kind of strap line really to describe what I do.
Yeah, because it just kind of it does encapsulate it, and as you said, they do sort of kind of one feeds into the other, but also, if you're going to think about being animal friendly, you kind of need to think about being human friendly and planet friendly as well, you know, rather than just, you know, kind of taking one route, I suppose. You need to sort of incorporate all of those. So listen, I want to ask you about how you came to be the first vegan certified interior designer in the UK, and you know, specifically vegan interior designer. What does that mean?
So I kind of I heard about this course. So I'm an avid podcast listener,
Right.
and maybe I can't remember how many years. It's been a good few years before there were interior design podcasts here in the UK. I was very tuned into a couple that are in the States, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them is called A Well-Designed Business by Luann Nagara, who's this amazing businesswoman, but she's such a good interviewer, and she gets some really good people on. And I've been listening to her podcast almost since the beginning. But she had a lady that came on the podcast 2 or 3 times, and she was a designer in the States. Her name's Deborah Damari, and she was a sort of TV interior designer on one of the programs, and they go in
Yeah,
with the building.
makeover kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember her exact journey, but she kind of started to question some of the specifications that she was using in her job, and you know, being an animal lover as I am, she kind of the two didn't marry up, and then she started to introduce vegan specifications into what she used, and then found that lots of designers were asking her where were they from and lots of questions. So she ended up evolving into an online course because
Mm-hmm.
she wanted to offer it globally.
And to have
So
and to have standards, I suppose. You know, rather
yeah,
than anyone saying, "Oh, I love animals. I'm a vegan, so therefore I'm a vegan interior designer," but have some sort of kind of criteria almost.
yeah. So kind of she was gathering knowledge and sharing it, but she was also wanted to sort of draw together a community, and we've got a badge that we can display, but also suppliers can use the badge as well. So it kind of helps people to navigate. But I mean, I I was, I mean, the whole connection to diet is kind of, I've kind of been, you know, vegetarian, pescatarian, you know, since I was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of everything along the way. And at the point of taking the course, you know, I was eating, I mean, it wasn't really anything to do with my diet necessarily,
Anything to do with you, like on that personal thing? Yeah.
but as I sort of, I did sort of find out a lot of things during the course that I thought I would have known from my body shop days. But of course, commercial interior design doesn't use all these soft furnishings, doesn't use silk, doesn't use down, and, you know, wool. There's lots of things that I thought were byproducts, but there's more to them.
Yeah.
And so for residential projects, I found, you know, you can make a lot more inroads into supplementing in other alternatives that are less, you know, that are cruelty free.
Mm.
So yeah, kind of, and incidentally, as I kind of got into it, then I kind of just thought I'm very nearly vegan anyway, so I just gave it a try and just stuck to it. But I don't want people to think that you have to sort of look at your own diet if you're looking at using cruelty-free specifications. It's kind of how we've always looked at cosmetics and toiletries, and you know, a lot of people choose not to have animal tested toiletries and cleaning products. It doesn't mean that they have to go all the way through their life and take meat and dairy out of their diet as
Yeah.
well, but obviously the planet kind of side of it and the animal side of it is a huge bonus, but I don't want people to feel that that's a barrier.
Yeah, or that you're a sort of you're on a crusade, or you know, you're being very worthy, because you're not. You're the
Yeah.
most kind of unworthy person I know. You know, you're
Oh,
very, you know, you're not sort of, you know, haranguing people that they must change, or you know, anything like that. I think it's very much about, and that's what I'm going to ask you later on in our chat today. But just it's about, you know, making small changes, even if you do one thing. you know, you're making a difference. And if all of us do one thing, that's a huge difference, isn't it? So,
It's
you know,
it's massive.
and you know, this is, you know, so if somebody, you know, isn't vegetarian, but they'd quite like to have a vegan interior, and do that bit for the planet and animals, and, you know, just doing that bit, they can, you know, it doesn't, you don't have to sort of follow a set of criteria or live a certain lifestyle to do that, is what you're saying.
No, and you know, we're so, you know, the internet, the internet wasn't really there when I started my career.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And so
yeah, yeah.
the information is flooding in now that we just didn't have years ago.
Yeah.
And you know, so the things that we're learning about, and this course was backed by lots of PETA investigations. PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
Mhm.
And so I don't know how these people can do it, but they were doing undercover filming of the various parts of our industry. And, you know, so it kind of, it's fact based.
Yeah.
And you sort of, you know, we are learning a lot more about things now. And once you're faced with the facts, it's kind of, yeah, it does make you kind of think. But I really want people to have their own journey. I don't want to force people to think my way. But yeah, there's definitely some eye-opening things in there.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
they'll come out as big, but
Yeah.
I don't want to scare people off. But at the same time, some of the things are quite alarming, and yeah, I think I sort of feel very protective. I don't particularly want people to see the videos and things that
Well,
I've
that's it.
seen.
It's like, you know, it's almost like people, you know, if you knew the truth, you know, you wouldn't do X, Y, and Z, I suppose. You know, so we'll talk about that a little bit further down, because
Yeah,
I don't want to sort of us to go off piste, and not, you
no,
know, cover stuff that I really want to talk to you about at the beginning, which is, you know, you mentioned that, you know, you worked for the Body Shop for 10 years, and I want you to explain a little bit about the body, just for people who might be watching who don't know what the Body Shop is. I mean, for people who
yeah,
live in the UK, definitely, and in Ireland, we all know, and maybe are of a certain age, we all know what the Body Shop is and what it stood for, and kind of how important it was in terms of this movement. But I just want you to tell us a little bit about the Body Shop, and also I want to know about your journey into interior design. I mean, your journey into sort of designing for the Body Shop and then branching it. So how did you get into that? I mean, did you always want to be an interior designer, or kind of how did that come about?
um, yeah. I mean, all the time through school, it was always art and design that I loved, and you know, every time you made a choice, I went in that direction. But I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do at the end. I knew that I loved making things, and I knew that I really wanted to do woodwork and metalwork, but you know, it wasn't as easy. You know, the options weren't so easy to choose at the time, and so I kind of navigated my way through as far as A levels and did art and design A level, and then did an art foundation course, which I absolutely loved, because it was, you know, you're just doing a bit of everything, aren't
So
you?
what
I
did
don't know.
that involve? Was that just like every bit of the arts?
So it's art and design. So you kind of from September to December, you literally every day you go in and do a different discipline, or every week, you know. So pottery, textiles, fashion design. You know, it kind of did. It was
You did
absolutely brilliant.
everything. Hmm.
Yeah, I
Oh,
loved
lovely.
it. I
Yeah.
loved it. And I really wanted to sort of do that as a degree, but of course you can't. So in January, you you need to focus on which direction you want to go in, which feels very early on into a 1 year course. But and then you start sort of applying for colleges, universities. So I'd been to visit Nottingham Trent. Well, at the time it was called Nottingham Polytechnic, Trent Polytechnic, and I went to look at the interior design course, and it was in the building where my grandmother studied fashion in
Oh,
Nottingham.
wow. So
It was,
you're a really creative family. And did you know that?
oh yeah, I knew,
Mm.
yeah. And my mum's very arty. She's a member of the Royal Academy. and she's a friend, and you know, there's always been lots of art and creativity in my life. But so I loved the university, I loved the course, but I also saw that there was furniture design going on at the side. So there was a sister course of furniture design, and as I was filling in the form, I just opted for furniture design in the end. Because I just couldn't decide between the two, because I really loved to make things. So that was a 4-year degree, and now it's called Nottingham Trent University. It changed names while I was there, and again, you got to, you know, try lots of different parts of that. So we did upholstery, we did, you know, woodwork, metalwork, welding. You know, we made some serious pieces of furniture.
And do you still have those pieces of furniture, or?
What have I got? No, not really. Some things we did something for a school which was donated.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds like everything was evolving all the time, but during my time on the course, they changed the course title to Furniture and Product Design. So we started to do product design, and my final degree project was a piece of each. So I did it was a set project, and I was told that my project was to design a container to move donor organs from between hospitals.
Oh, wow.
So having no sort of medical knowledge, I had to go to Harefield Hospital, speak to, you know, all the medical staff, and see the process of
and see what was existing already and how you could improve on it. Just all of that research. Yeah.
It was quite a thing to learn about, because at the time donor organs were going into more or less a bag of ice, which went into a cardboard box on the back of a motor carrier.
Yeah.
Kind of like this valuable organ.
Well, life or death, or living organ. Yeah, absolutely. And every second is crucial. Here, design a container for that.
Yeah, he's a student with no experience of any of this, but I absolutely loved finding out about it, and the problem solving, and the looking at plastics. And so I ended up designing something that could be stored in a freezer, that was put together with the organ inside, and then I designed a sort of it's like a sort of bag that went around the waist of the motorcycle courier. So it was all of its pieces in, you know, so no boxes, no, you know, it was safely delivered.
So there was nothing throwaway with it. It was all reusable, was it?
Yeah. Bearing in mind this is 1990, yeah, around about there. So we were really sort of environmentally conscious then, you know. So
I was going to ask you that. Was sustainability or environmental awareness or anything, was that, I mean, during your course, because I know it was around then, it was a thing that we talked about, but was that, you know, was there were you taught that during the course, or was that any kind of part of it, or was it just a general awareness?
I think it was just a general awareness. So my furniture final degree project was I designed some bar stools for this, you know, this client who was Quaglinos, but it was, you know, it was a set. It wasn't, Quaglinos weren't really asking for them, but that was my kind of target.
That was your client, your client project, yeah.
So to make these stools, I'd found out about a board that's called Textile board, and it was made. They still make it now. It's recycled Tetra Pak, and basically it's squished into, you know, the standard board size, and it basically holds itself together because it's got the plastic layer. Because it's been
Tetra Pak is quite robust, isn't it? Tetra Pak is the stuff that the cartons that milk comes in.
Yeah, that's it. So I mean, it's still, you know, at the time it wasn't being recycled, but now it's being recycled a lot. So this board is still happening. So I did some experiments with this board, and I sort of sanded it, stained it, you know, I did all sorts of things, and because it kind of got that silver glisten in it as well, so it was really nice actually as a decorative material. So I used a sort of sustainable product for my final degree furniture project, and then took them to Quaglino's to sort of do a photo shoot with them as well, which was really nice of them to let me do that. So yeah, it was
Amazing.
it was, you know, we didn't have sustainability as a sort of
as a
subject.
unit of learning. Yeah,
it was definitely there. I remember using some packaging for something that we designed. Yeah, it was definitely on our radar. Just on a personal level, we were sort of choosing to go the sustainable
to explore
route.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then
So,
tell me, so kind of from there, you know, what was the next step? You know, did you go into the body shop, or tell me about that? So you need to remember to tell us what the body shop is, okay?
Yes, I must. So the next step was kind of like, so that degree project, the donor organ container, was selected to go to New Designers, which at the time, New Designers, it was quite a new kind of show. So for anyone that doesn't know, New Designers is like, it's like the cream of the crop from all the graduate shows, and they're all taken to London and then displayed, and then there's various awards each year. So that won Consumer Product Design Award.
You
that
won
year.
it.
Yeah, which
Brilliant.
is brilliant.
Oh,
yeah,
well done. See, a star in the making. It was already there, your talent.
It was, yeah, it was so excited to hear my name announced. You know, it was just brilliant. And so that set me up with my first Apple Mac computer, which was quite a big, bulky thing and slow, you know, compared to these days. But it was a great tool to be given as a new graduate.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was, you know, it was a recession. It was a really hard time to find work, and
so
especially.
When was that?
It would be 1993.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty tough. And then kind of coming back to Brighton, I really wanted to come back to my hometown. At the time, it wasn't the most sort of creative industry kind of. It was a town then, you know. There wasn't so much going on here. There's lots of tourism, and so
it was the traditional kind of seaside town still, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Compared to now, it's just bursting with sort of creativity, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's completely different. But yeah, it was. There's a bit of finance, lots of hotels, and you know, there wasn't a lot else happening really. But by chance, I saw an advert for a furniture company along the coast who were looking for a junior designer, and I was very lucky that I got it. But
brilliant.
So I was in a drawing office with a design manager who, you know, quite young, but these two older guys who were just about to retire really, and they were so skilled on the drawing board, and you know, their handwriting, and it was just beautiful. The drawings that they produced for this.
So they did the drawings by hand. So the technical drawings by hand, which is just amazing to see, and that skill, and as you say, the lettering, and just
it's beautiful. So nice. And so they were really lovely to work with, and I learned so much from them. And then our design manager said, we're bringing in CAD. And these two guys.
I mean, for people now, you know, CAD is, you know, everybody learns it, everybody knows it, but we're bringing in this new, shiny.
I mean, we didn't even have a computer. We didn't use computers for emails. There were no computers on desks in those days. You had your drawing board, you had your desk where you put your pens and everything next to you. You had a phone.
You had a landline, yeah.
But if you're lucky, it was a, you know, what do you call them? Push.
Oh yeah, rather than a rotary one.
Yes, But that was kind of scene setting how we worked, and then, you know, this bright spark saying it's time to bring in computer aided design. It's kind of like these two guys were like,
that's really? It. I give up. I go home. I'm going home. Yeah.
So we all got sent off to learn it, and they were brilliant, and we all helped each other learn. And I'd learned. So just to sort of paint the picture, so at Trent Polly, they just started to get in CAD as we were leaving. So some people using it more than others. I'd sort of done a bit of it, so I kind of knew the whole way it worked. But it was just coming in a bit too late for us. So this was my first opportunity to really get into CAD as well, and I love it. I've used all the programs, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, these guys were really quite inspiring because they really did embrace it, and they took it on and they carried on working for years. And then so it was quite a turbulent time economy-wise, and so this furniture company sort of did this last in, first out kind of redundancy. And so I think I've been there a year and a half, 2 years. I've just got my first mortgage, and they sort of, I'm sorry, but you have to go. But I mean, I was devastated, but it was the best thing really that happened to me.
Yeah, I think when you're starting your career, don't stay too long in one place. I think 2 years max, and then you do need to move. Otherwise, you just you stop learning. All of that sort of stuff. So tell me what happened next.
So I kind of felt like back to the drawing board, but because I had this lovely Mac, I was able to do lots of sort of freelancing projects, and so I got involved in some nice little bits. But I kind of really wanted to get back into working for a company again. I had a mortgage,
Yeah.
So I just thought, so that's the body shop. So Anita Roddick set up the body shop in Brighton, my hometown, and I very much feel like I've grown up with this company because so she set up one shop in the North Lane where she would she'd make the products, you'd take your empty bottles back and they'd refill them. And it was just a really lovely shop. And she really talked about values. She really talked about against animal testing. She was very, very hot on it, all these sort of environmental
And
campaigns.
This was in, she started the company in 1972, something like that? 1976, yeah. Because I feel like I've grown up with the body shop. It was always there, but yes, so go on.
And she was always so she was always kind of this businesswoman kind of figurehead. So a lot of us, that she was so different to what else was happening. A woman leading a company and being so vocal, and bringing up.
She was an
all
entrepreneur as well, and it was a real kitchen table business. She had young children. She started it because she really believed that this in what she was doing and making people aware and making a difference. So yeah, she was a real trailblazer, but not a hard-headed wearing a suit businesswoman. She was just really really being true to her values.
Absolutely. And so this was all happening for me. My mum was shopping there. All my friends were getting their ears pierced there. I kind of grew up with this shop. And I got to this point where I was in between jobs again. And I just thought, by this time, body shop was, pretty much all around the UK. There was, there were other countries going on. But it was just as they were floating on the stock exchange so that they could really do a big push and kind of get into other markets globally. I didn't really realise all that was going on. But at the time, I just thought, I'm just going to write to Anita Roddick and just say, look, any chance of a bit of work experience? I've grown up with your company and I idolise it, and I, can
and you obviously shared, at that time you shared the same values.
Oh yeah. I think most young girls especially did. It's just, she was just so big in our lives really. She was so popular. I never thought I'd get a reply, but I got a reply, and I was given some work experience in their London office, which is where they did all the sort of the graphic side of things.
The marketing and all branding and all that side of stuff.
Yeah. And so it's very, very creative. And I worked for a lovely designer who I'm still in contact with. who's called Daisy, and she's wonderful. And then that kind of led to them telling this new department that was being formed that I was around, because I was a 3D designer. And I ended up getting some work for this new team that was starting to be built. So they were drawing together a retail design team to do all the concept design, but also the sort of, what do you call them? Oh, you know, like you test a store in each market and get everyone to evaluate it. The flagship.
Is it R&D, research and design?
Yeah,
yeah. So when you so it's like a prototype, is it? Where you get people to try it out and see what works, see what doesn't.
Yeah. So they're basically bringing in teams to sort of do that, and then to sort of feed drawings out so that it was all executed properly. So I was so lucky because I had this CAD background, I had this furniture design background, and it kind of all came together, and I worked in this retail design team. So it was just wonderful. So yeah, we were prototyping and trialing things within the Body Shop head office. We had a mock shop, which was brilliant. And then, you know, everyone came and evaluated that. Anita would come and look, and then it would go out to a market to be tested further. So we were doing that, and I kind of was doing that for 10 years.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I can imagine. And, you know, you're just working for, you know, kind of a, you know, a hero of yours, you know, and you must have learned so much, you know, because she really was, as I said, a trailblazer in the UK and globally, you know, in terms of sustainability. You know, you can do this, you can incorporate, you can be sustainable and be commercial. You can be a business success but be sustainable, because I think they were seen maybe as two separate things. You know, one, you know, being sustainable was a bit hippy dippy, and, you know, you kind of, you know, didn't care about the money, or the, you know, you couldn't really make money, and then and then on the other side you had to be a hard-headed commercial person driving the business, you know, at the lowest cost possible. But actually she showed that you were able to do both.
Yeah, you could do your business and do it in a harm
and live your values as well. So that must have been incredible. You must have, as I said, you must have learned so much, which you probably still apply now.
I did. I learned an enormous amount. So, you know, one of the big things that so basically for every material that we use, we had a question sheet that we had to answer ourselves and get the supplier to answer as well. So there was a whole team of people that would kind of, if we were working with a new factory, they'd check the factory out. They'd check all the materials. They were, you know, it was really carefully done. The company didn't want to sort of do anything
thoroughly as well.
Yeah. So we always used sustainable timber. It always had to be FSC certified, which is Forestry Stewardship Council certified. And that is really important, because it means when they cut down the tree, they plant more trees. Mm-hmm. But there's also the community aspect, because they make sure that the people that work in that industry are paid properly, you know, that they're safe working conditions. And also by replanting, they're putting back natural habitats, because there's, you know, the animal biodiversity side of things as well. So
I know. Will you look at is it in Sarawak, isn't it? You know, the depletion of orangutans, because their habitat where they live, the trees, has been decimated. So it's that sort of ecological sort of knock-on effect that you know, it's about being mindful of.
So there was absolutely no way we were going to be allowed to use anything that wasn't sustainable and with that label. And then we had to, well, we were exploring lots of lovely recycled materials that were around. So there was quite a lot of that going on. So more of the sort of tech tan board kind of side of things. So we were using, it's still around now, Smile Plastics. They make board out of recycled plastic, and it's quite decorative, and we were using that. We were trying to do lots of reusing as well. So the visual merchandising team found a company that did bowls that were actually the fronts of washing machines that have been recycled,
Oh yeah,
upcycled.
the glass bit.
Yeah,
The glass bit,
and
the
they've been
door,
sandblasted.
the bit on the
Yeah,
door. Oh, brilliant!
so,
Oh, how
so
clever!
so there's lots of clever things like that going on, and then things, you know, kind of in things you don't see. So the boards that we use, the MDF, we always had to use one that didn't have formaldehyde in it, because even in those years ago, we knew that the off-gassing of that was bad for health, and you know, so that was all avoided. So there were lots of things happening. So we were really following because the company's mantra was this: reduce, reuse, recycle for their products, but we were using that for the interiors as well.
So it carried right through.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Right. So listen, we need to move on, because I've got loads of other questions to ask you. So what I want to ask you actually was you know, your own project. So you know, you worked at the body shop, and then you went out on your own. So tell me a little bit about, you know, why you made the leap to going on your own, and then I want you to tell me just a little bit about the projects that you work on, because I know that you do both residential and commercial. So just tell me a little bit about that.
So after 10 years, I've kind of worked on multiple store concepts, and I've had the most wonderful time, you know, and I learned an awful amount. But it just got to this store concept that was really successful, and I knew that it was going to be quite a few years before the ball started rolling again on a new one. And Body Shop was really very empowering, you know, and encouraging of people to sort of set up on their own, and you know, they wanted people to kind of follow their dreams.
Emulate, you know, what Anita had done, I suppose.
Yeah, I was getting a bit fed up with the commute to London, because I was commuting. It was a London-based
from Brighton.
job.
That's takes its toll.
Yeah. So kind of all of those things, I just thought, you know, I really did prepare for it. I didn't just, you know, decide to go, but I kind of overpaid my mortgage. I got some things in place behind me, and then I decided to set up on my own. And yeah, so initially I wasn't sure how I'd sort of fall into the market, because being a commercial interior designer, really, from my body shop experience, I wasn't sure if I'd get involved in residential or not. But I did a little bit of both to start with, and I kind of really did a lot of commercial. So offices, dentists, a clinic or two, you know, salons, things like that. Kind of, I sort of said yes to everything, because I find it really exciting, really.
Yeah, and also you're kind of bringing that awareness to, you know, businesses or areas of business or areas of commercial interiors that maybe wouldn't have even considered it. They're just going to follow whatever's been done before, without thinking of kind of alternative ways of doing it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we do. It's kind of we've got tried and tested. We don't really want to, you know, push the boundaries too much. But yeah, so I was kind of in the background doing all these things anyway, but not really talking about them. And then I was finding, as time went on, some clients were liking to hear about these alternative things that I put in. And then I worked on one of my repeat clients is it's a school. They've basically got lots of colleges around the country, but also globally. And they were doing a really massive build here in Brighton, and it needed to achieve BREEAM Excellent. Mm-hmm. So BREEAM is like a sustainability certification that at the time was part of the planning conditions. And so it had to have certain things in there. So kind of, we sort of had a green wall, we had PVs on, we had solar panels on the roof. There was kind of lots of air kind of things in there as well, to sort of, so that it wasn't all based on air conditioning. There was kind of exchange of air naturally. Mm-hmm. And then the materials that we were using had to kind of be non-off-gassing and a bit more conscious. So it was my first experience of a kind of official sustainability kind of scorecards to check against.
Yeah,
and I just thought, oh, I like this. I can do more. I can tell clients about more things than what we've put into this project. Actually, this is just the tip of it,
Mm.
So I started to keep a bit of a scorecard for all of my projects, and at the end, give that to my client. And then if it's a commercial client particularly, they've really loved that, and then they've gone on to talk about that in their own marketing. And
and also absolutely, for customers saying that, we've done this, and therefore you're going to, again, it's another kind of selling point, that you want to talk about, that really appeals to people, it more and more so.
I mean, we're problem solving, we're designing kind of beautiful interiors, but I just like getting under another layer into it, and kind of giving more value, really.
Absolutely. And feeling like, for a client, that's an amazing feeling, like they don't just have a new interior, they feel like they're doing good. There's actually, what they're doing is beneficial, because, as you say, interior design really sort of generally, it can be quite a wasteful industry. You're chucking stuff out, you're putting new stuff in, it can't, so it's just ways of doing that lessens that kind of impact.
So I've got some facts here about our industry.
Oh, okay. Should I like put my tin hat on?
So the built environment accounts for 40% of energy-related carbon dioxide emissions. So, it's massive, just our wider industry. And then we consume 60% of all products, and that accounts for 45% of CO2 emissions. And also just looking at sort of the items that we put into our spaces, so kind of furniture and things like that, they're saying, this is from a RSA report, they say that everybody in the UK throws away 1.6 million tonnes of bulky waste, but 51% of that is instantly reusable or reusable with a slight repair.
Right.
There's a lot of waste, and for commercial clients, I'm often, well, not so much, but in the past, I've kind of, it's been a new company taking over space, rip everything out, we've got a different look. It was really nice to work with my repeat client last year, who we kind of evaluated the space really carefully before we did any stripping out, and there was a perfectly good floor, and that sort of, because it was a black tiled floor, it kind of in a way kind of led to the design.
It informed the design.
It wasn't the tail that wagged the dog. We still ended up something really beautiful, but we just had that evaluation time of, do we really need to take a floor up as well as, So I think we do need to be mindful of the waste in our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe even finding out where you can, recycle stuff for, rather than perhaps throwing a pair of curtains out. Is there a place where you can bring them and they can sell them on, and you can make a commission? And, because there's always somebody out there who maybe will make a use out of the stuff that you have and you want to get rid of. And it's just about making that sort of cyclical, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And British Heart Foundation are great. If you can only give something away, they'll come and collect it. But the thing that stops a lot of our products being recycled is people cut the fire label off of a sofa or a mattress, and then that means that can't be reused and it can only be recycled. So
really? Reused in what sense? In commercial interiors, or selling it to a residential?
Either, really. Just the fact that, whether, it's crib rating, we just need to make sure that the fire safety label stays with the product.
Oh, okay. So that's a really simple thing that people can do.
So
Don't
simple.
cut that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really useful to know because, you know, you can, it is, we all know what that label is. It's the thing hanging out, but it's not normally in a really, it's not like it's down the front of the sofa, or it's normally sort of under the seating or at the back. So, you know, and we
Yeah,
just cut it off because, you know, we're trying to make it nice and neat, but actually it has more of an impact than we think by cutting off that label. So yeah,
yeah.
very
So,
good to
and
know.
of course, you know, if you buy better, it usually has a resale value,
Mm,
which, you know, so there's an encouragement to kind of invest in better pieces for clients as well, because they will hold their value. Even if
yeah.
the client goes off something, they can easily sell it on, and there's
Mm.
lots of companies doing that kind of thing,
Yeah, or
you know.
even, you know, reuse if it's decent quality, it's going to last longer. So,
Yeah,
you know, you can always reupholster a sofa, you know, and reuse it and give it a new lease of life. You know, get an upholsterer to sort of restuff it. And I'm doing two chairs for a client where we're going to sort of restuff them and reupholster them and recover them. And they belong to her grandparents. They're over 100 years old.
oh, how nice.
You know, so
And
I'm
then that
help.
pinpoint.
Yeah, and it become and you can really transform a piece, you know, you'll give it a new lease of life, and it just becomes a new thing. But yes, it has a story, you know, that's sort of been down through your family. I just think that's lovely.
And that's something that I think I'm able to do a lot with my projects, is the storytelling side. You know, there's a
Mm,
lot more to tell, you know, rather than this came from there and it cost this much. You know, there's much more of a storytelling element.
mm. And there's
And
layers
also,
to it.
yeah, and I love being able to use all these brilliant crafts people, you know, like people that bring things back to life, and bringing trades and skills, keeping them alive,
Yeah,
because, you know, that service element of our industry, rather than just buy, you know, looking at the people who can
yeah.
make.
Yeah, and giving them, you know, using that skill, and that's a livelihood for somebody, and giving them that. So do you think that do you think that this pandemic has made people think about that a little bit more, about the environment, about our impact on the environment, and you know, do you think that will sort of have a positive effect on kind of what you do?
I really hope so. I feel like the healthy and planet friendly side, you know, the sustainability, everybody's kind of benefited from the clearer air quality. You don't realise until you can sort of smell it for yourself that, you know, the
Yeah,
air quality is better. I mean, I definitely am feeling much more inclined to, you know, be more mindful of how I travel. I was doing that anyway, really, but even more, you know, and through this pandemic, this whole buying from people locally, whether it's your shopping, your food shopping, and it's the people element. You know, you're actually feeling like you're supporting people that you
yeah,
can see. You know,
yeah, and you're part of a community.
and buying people from people who look after their people, and not buying from large places that have
Yeah,
their.
yeah, that doesn't pay tax. But anyway, so listen, going back to your projects, tell me what has been. I mean, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on in your career?
Well, there were a couple of favourite body shop ones, but there's been a favourite one since as well. So I've kind of got three. But so for body shop, one of the store concepts that we were trialing was in Singapore, and it meant that I had multiple trips to Singapore to work with the architect to kind of develop the space. It was absolutely wonderful, and I really got to know Singapore, and I absolutely fell in love with it. But how long into working for them? Oh, maybe 6 years. I I asked if I could. So basically, we had a concept that we wanted to trial in Adelaide, and at the time, I was sort of wanting to go and try working in one of the offices, and so I got sent on a secondment to the Melbourne office in
Right.
Australia
Yeah.
to kind of implement this store concept in Adelaide, and then to look at kind of rolling it out across the country. So I was there for 9 months, and
Oh,
it was
amazing.
it was great. I absolutely loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. And, you know, it's so nice to sort of see a company from a market as well.
Yeah,
You
from
know,
another angle. Yeah.
yeah.
And a different market, because it is a very different market with different needs, and you know the lifestyle is so different.
And the nice thing about their version of Body Shop, in those days it was much more like the older days of Body Shop, with gift baskets and people making those up. And I don't know if you remember those from, but that was a really nice part that I really enjoyed. So it's kind of a little bit going back in time with the Body Shop side of things. But yeah, great people, loved it. But then 5 years ago, so I've had my company, this is the 15th year I've been working for myself, and 5 years ago I was asked to join a creative team for 3 buses in Brighton and Hove that they wanted to theme. And we've had buses here that have been done on the outside, but they wanted to do the insides as well.
Listen, I'm so glad that you are talking about this, because when I came across this on your website, I really wanted to, it just looks like such an amazing, fun project. So I wanted to ask a bit, so were these buses actually public buses that you would that would stop at a bus stop and you would get on?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there weren't any special
I didn't know whether they were like play buses or, so yeah, tell us about them.
So these are everyday buses going, you know, in and out of Brighton. Some of them go up to Tunbridge Wells and back, but they just get put on different routes every day. And basically it was to promote tourism. So the first one was all about our North Lane shopping area, which is where all the sort of independent shops are, and got a bit of a buzz to it.
Which is amazing. And if you haven't been to the lanes shopping in Brighton, I would recommend that you go. They're just these little cobble streets with loads of independent shops, and fabulous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So we've got two parts of it. We've got the lanes, which is very jewelry and, you know, quite a bit posher, and then there's the North Lane, which is a bit more, you know, kind of
surfy and bohemian and beachy, and
most of the companies are independent, which is quite unusual these days, isn't it? So we really wanted to promote that because, you know, it's a loved part of Brighton. And then there was a bus to kind of encourage people to go to, it was a beach bus, so we themed it on our beach. And the third one was South Downs and the biosphere. So, you know, I live on the hilly bit of Brighton. We are really on the downs here, you know, and they're really beautiful and special. But we've also got this biosphere with all these lovely, you know, special animals and creatures, and, you know, wanted to promote that. So each one had a theme, and I absolutely loved working on them, Nicola. It was great. So there were really brilliant graphic designers, illustrators involved. I got to sort of comment on the outsides as well as the insides, you know.
So what was your role? Your role was in terms of specifying. So why did they bring you on board to do that? Because, you know, it's a kind of a bus, and they were sort of visuals, weren't they? Poly wrapped sort of on the inside. So what was the kind of purpose of bringing you on board?
So they just needed a commercial interior designer to kind of look at the safety element while looking at the creative element. So with like having an MOT, these buses have to have their own kind of MOT. They have to be safe. So we, you know, had to kind of work with the materials that were safe, but obviously pushing the boundaries and making them as creative as possible. So we did things to the lights, and we, you know, I was let loose in the store of all the moquette that they use on buses that had been saved. It was like the roll ends for years and years of vintage moquette.
So this is the upholstery for the seats.
Yeah.
So those kind of those seat patterns, all the different patterns that they would have. That sort of the moquette, which is sort of like a raised cut velvety pattern.
Yeah, it's really hard wearing, and it is actually wool. But my sort of thing that made me feel better was that we were using vintage.
You were reusing.
We were reusing, but I can't believe they let me. But for the South Downs and Biosphere bus, they let me use up the end of their Route Master bus moquette, which is ever so special. You know, it's from the original Route Master buses, so that's going around Brighton on
Yeah,
one of the
wow.
beautiful. So yeah, it was a brilliant, brilliant project. I really enjoyed it. And we worked with some great people.
Yeah, well, we'll have,
So
I'm going to put a little link to your website and your Instagram at the end of this interview. So you've got images of those buses on your website so people can go and have a look. And they're amazing. I mean, they just look fantastic. You just imagine stepping on a bus and just thinking it completely brightening your day.
oh, completely. I mean, I've sat on the bus and heard people's comments. It really is just gorgeous. But just, I look up the road from where I live and I see one of the buses go past the end of the road. I get such a thrill.
Yeah, yeah. But it's because I think what we do is, we are sort of creating interiors and spaces, but what we want to do really, I think, is we just love it when our clients are happy. And the sort of ethos of what we do is to make our clients, enjoy and love the space that they're in. And that's kind of
Yeah.
what it's all, and feel happy. And that's what it's all about. So I did want to ask you before I forget is, in terms of talking about our spaces and making us feel happy and feel better, can you tell me, you're a Fitwell ambassador, so can you tell me what that means? What's that all about?
So um, Fitwell is very similar to the Well Building Standards. So it's kind of basically the concept is that we want to make spaces, design them around occupants' health rather than giving the occupant, the person that's using it, just a space. We want to derive everything from them and their health. So it is quite a different way of looking at things. So, so the Fitwell, you have a kind of scorecard that you work through, and so you're looking at the air quality, access to nature. So that could be, is there somewhere you can go in your break and kind of have a little garden area? Could that be like a veggie patch so people could get involved in it in their lunch breaks? There's always lots about biophilia these days, but the huge health and wellness benefit of seeing greenery really, and how you position a building to kind of optimize the greenery. There's looking at lighting and using sort of healthy lighting. So thinking about the circadian rhythm, which is our sleep-wake cycle, and kind of optimizing daylight and things like that. Water quality. There's lots and lots of elements to the building.
So would something, I mean, would, in terms of ergonomics and anthropomorphics would come into it as well, wouldn't it? In terms
absolutely.
Of the human body and, the space that you have around you and, as you said, you need light and air really, to have sufficient light and sufficient fresh air, not just as, as we spoke about briefly much earlier on, not just about air conditioning and recycle. You hear about these sick buildings where they have just recycled air pumping through, but to have natural ventilation is really important as well.
Yeah, because we know we're told repeatedly that we spend around 90% of our time inside. And then we also know that buildings are built more efficiently and more airtight. So we've got to be really careful about all the materials that we put into those spaces, because unless you're having a good air flush on a couple of times a day, you're kind of shutting yourself inside with some really nasty toxic chemicals. So these building standards make you look at those materials, but they also, comfort is a huge part of it. So that's kind of comfort in terms of sound comfort, kind of, as well as ergonomic comfort. And it's really coming into its own after this pandemic, because a lot of the things, like cleaning protocols, and it's all there they haven't really had to adjust them to suit this pandemic, because they're already doing things to kind of take viruses out of the air and clean high touch areas and things like that. So I've really enjoyed learning about it, and I think it's really worth exploring. I would encourage all designers to have a look at both.
I'm definitely going to have a look. So if there's a link that you can give us, and I'll put it at the end. But I do think it's something that's probably going to come into play or kind of become more of a focus, because so many people have spent this amount of time working from home. You've kind of, had to sort of make it comfortable for yourself, but you've been able to control your environment, because a lot of people work in open plan offices. There's lots of different people, with lots of different needs. Some people need a lot of light, they need fresh air. Other people don't. They don't like a lot of light, they find it distracting. So
Yeah.
you're trying to juggle all of these different needs. So, I think everyone being at home have been able to control their environment a lot more. So they might be reluctant to go back into an office where they're going to have to sort of adjust downwards in their view. So, that's something that is going to have to be considered, I think, much more.
Yeah, definitely. They've definitely got to make it a more attractive, to people, for people to go back. I'm really into kind of learning more about office and the psychology of the office, and I think it will end up coming back round. People really do always need to gather, but there's ways of doing it, and yeah, office design is just such an interesting area. I think there's potential problems for people working from home. Lots of people aren't on the right kind of chair, and being a furniture design graduate, I know what goes into the ergonomics of all of that, and I think that's kind of a small problem that's going to come up.
Yeah, and I think you're right. People, maybe, younger people, I do, there's kind of people I feel sorry for, maybe living in a shared house where they're in a bedroom, they don't have a desk, everybody's working from home, they're sort of perched on a laptop on their bed, and the thing about being on a computer is you sort of, if you're working, you can kind of lose track of time. So you're in a really uncomfortable, you forget to sort of get up, move around, make sure, every 30 or 40 minutes, get up, walk around, stretch. So you could be in a very uncomfortable position for a long time without realizing it.
Yeah, definitely. It's really important. And just to have an air flush of your workspace as well, because it can get quite stagnant. It's good to do that.
Yeah.
But I think we're not looking after ourselves quite as well when we're working from home.
Yeah.
I'm a bit worried from that, but we'll see. We'll see how things pan out.
But maybe that's this is something I've spoken about kind of previously. I think I've talked about it with Cinzia in our IGTV. We did a thing on working from home, and I do think in terms of interior design and building and layouts, in the future people will be thinking about dedicated work, a working from home space, and sort of building that into a design, because we are the focus is on that now.
From what I can gather, the occupancy levels of buildings is going to reduce enormously. I think they're going to encourage people to come and gather maybe once a week in a space, and it, kind of just using that space really well and effectively, and maybe having a really good booking system to kind of use what bricks and mortar they have, but then let people work from home if they're finding that they're really productive working from home.
Yeah, I think there will be, I think going forward, because I think you're absolutely right, we crave human contact and we need it. It's actually really, really good for our mental health, to gather in groups, that's just a basic human need. So I don't think the office is dead, but I do think there will be a mix. People will want that, people will have a combination of working from home and going into the office. And I think there will be much more of a drive, because we've been forced to do it. So I think employers have seen actually this working from home thing is okay. People are productive, and also in any business it's about where you can make savings, and if they can save money on office space, and and they have people have a better balance, so you're not commuting all the time, so you're going to be much happier and much more productive, if you can sort of be at home some of the time. And again, that will hopefully help local business.
I hope so. Yeah, I really hope so, because a lot of those small businesses have been my clients, so I feel very attached to.
Yeah, very personally. So listen, I wanted to ask you as well. So in terms of interior designers, you know, what can we do? How can we be more sustainable in our work? Like in terms of, you know, kind of advising clients on alternatives, and also from the other side, clients, you know, people who are, or even if it's your own home, you know, you're interested in interior design, you know, are there any kind of pointers that you can give us to sort of, you know, what we can do to be kind of more sustainable in interior design?
Well, your point earlier about doing a few things well rather than doing, you know, a lot unsuccessfully is huge. And I really don't want people to feel overwhelmed, and that this isn't an area that they can step into, because just to make sure that timber, asking the questions of our suppliers, it's surprising with timber used for building is pretty good. You know, all the certifications seem to be there, but for furniture products, I often have to ask, is this from a sustainable source? Is it FSC? There's another label as well called PEFC, which is a bit more of an American product, but sometimes you hear about those and it's very similar. So I think we all just need to be a bit more inquisitive and just ask a few more questions. So, you know, even because sustainability is sort of people, planet and profit, and sustainability is where all of those things meet in the middle. So we need to think about the people element as well. Kind of, there's been this Who Made My Clothes campaign, fashion revolution, and we know what's happening in the supply industry, for the supply chain for fashion, but you know, we don't ask those questions of our suppliers. And I think kind of like, where are things made, and kind of asking those questions might help to put some pressure on the suppliers to tell us, be a bit more transparent, and to kind of be a bit more mindful of where they're buying things from as well. But so I also found there's a huge amount of recycled content for things that we can use. So you can buy recycled paint that's all completely newly packaged. So, you know, paint is really easy. There's lots of flooring products that have got, I always look for about 40% as a recycled good content.
Benchmark.
Yeah, you don't want it too weedy and sort of low, but 40 seems to be achievable. So there's, you can get floor tiles, you can get sheet flooring, planks, you know. I try to use engineered timber so that it's not a solid timber, so all of that solid plank isn't sort of going to waste. So I try and sort of think about how the materials are used. Paint wise, it's always better. I do weigh up, you know, what is the environment that this paint's going to? Is it going to be in a college building where students are going to scuff things along the walls?
It needs to be really hard wearing, yeah.
Yeah, or is it in a home where people are going to be a bit more careful? So, you know, I really evaluate the longevity side of it, because some of the natural paints aren't quite as tough as these traditional ones. But I do try and use sort of breathable, low VOC paints, you know, kind of, rather than the sort of petrochemical ones, which are not very breathable, and they have some VOC content. But also just to ask the question of, is this paint and its ingredients, is it tested on animals? Because unfortunately there are still some paints that are tested on animals, which you wouldn't believe is a thing really now, but it still is happening. And this was a question that I used to have to ask all those years ago at the body shop. So I'm a bit disappointed with that one. But yeah, those are sort of three areas. So timber, using recycled content, and thinking about the paint you use. Those are three simple things to keep in mind.
So another question that I had just along those lines, which I suppose, you know, perhaps, you know, interior designers or kind of homeowners want to know, but might feel a little bit embarrassed about asking, or maybe there's a perception and it puts them off. But if you're specifying, you know, sustainable or environmental products, you know, are they always going, are they much more expensive? Like, are you going to rack up the costs in your project because you're using these sort of special products?
I mean, there's things you can use that will run away with budget, but there's things that you can use that are the same. And you know, while I'd love to have all my clients kind of be completely on board with this sustainability, and you know, they aren't. Clients know me from other, they haven't all seen my website. They know me from word of mouth. They know me from working with them for years. So they kind of don't always know that that's my offer. So yeah, I get in the situation where if they ask for something that is not sustainable, or you know, I'm not happy about the animal side of things, I'll offer up an alternative that's the same price, you know, and they're always happy to go with what I'm suggesting as long as it doesn't add cost.
So so you can do things at an equivalent cost.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
absolutely.
Well, that's good to know, because I do think sometimes that puts people off, because there is a perception of, like, you know, it's a bit like organic food in the supermarket. You know, that
Yeah,
it's a premium product. It's you know, you're sort of, you know, paying a premium for you know, for what you're doing. So I think perhaps there's a perception that, well, I'm not going to do that because it's probably just going to be more expensive. It's probably going to be way more than, you know, this version that I've always used. So that's good to know that it is comparable.
there are, and especially with this recycled content, looking at that side, you know, that's fabrics, you know, it's loads of things that have got recycled content, and there's often companies who have ranges, and then you can see that one's got a recycled content. That's happening more and more, and
Yeah.
they aren't any more expensive.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's good to know. And listen, tell me, you know, just in terms of, you know, kind of products like fabrics or flooring, or, you know, I kind of don't know what else, but, you know, so what vegan alternatives are there out there that you know, that we can use, that we can source and that we can incorporate into our designs and our projects?
well, there's so taking fabrics, you know, commercial quality upholstery fabrics. There's a lot of sort of equivalents that you can use that are just vegan. So there's but a couple of clients I've used, I kind of a suede looking fabric, which is so tough, it's impervious, it's brilliant. And that's kind of, you know, instead of getting into the realms of suede or leather or, you know, any kind of skins. So those exist, but I'm trying to do a lot of research into kind of avoid, because that there is a petrochemical element
To
to.
that, yeah, because I was thinking, you know, it's vegan, but then what's it made of?
Yeah, exactly. And I really am wanting to be really careful about that. So at the moment, there's things like, there's a part bio leather that you can buy. So it's kind of part petrochemical, part bio. And that that is only going to get better as they kind of do more R&D. But you know, Philippe Stark has released a sofa that's made of apple leather, and there's a lot going on in the
So what's
industry.
the apple leather? Is that made from some sort of combination of the skin of an apple?
I think it's the sort of like the waste products, like, you know, I don't know which you know, which
Which bit of the apple?
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it, you know, waste apple. And there's mycelium, which is mushrooms. There's cork leather happening. There's lots of sort of fruit and vegetable waste turning up into leather. So there's Pinatex, which is a pineapple leather. So there's so
This
much
is amazing.
kind of
I never knew
innovation.
these were even out there, you know, and this is the thing. If you don't know what's out there, you don't know what to look for. So
No,
this is really useful. I'm going to be going off looking at up pineapple leather and apple leather and all sorts of, but this is brilliant because, you know, they're not, you know, they're not, it's not so easy for us to find them. So this is why I really want to talk to you, because this is really, really useful information.
yeah, it's really an exciting time for innovation. You know, they're really coming up with some clever things. So they're not quite there with kind of bio-rated kind of leather, but
Yeah.
they definitely are with you know, the fashion industry is where I'm looking all the time, because it's happening there, and it's only a matter of time for it to
Yeah.
be
They
more.
kind of drive it, and then it really influences interiors so much.
And
So
the automotive industry as well. There's a lot of electric cars that are being upholstered in vegan leathers, and they're being very conscious of what those vegan leathers are. Because just as a comparison, the worst vegan leather, even if you went for something really plasticky, it's said to be at least half less bad as a actual leather. So there's so many chemicals. There's the water element of, you know, raising an animal. There's the methane. There's a lot going on with leather to you know, raise it, use it, and then keep a skin from deteriorating, because you know,
but also the dyeing of that skin, you know, the
yeah,
tanning, the, you know, that you know, that the whole chemical process around that.
there's and again, the people side of that. I mean, whether it's people working in that industry in India who are sloshing around in those horrible chemicals. I mean, they're said to not their lifespan is sort of till they're 50. You know, they at the most.
They're being poisoned slowly. Yeah.
And I've read sort of things about the people with living close to leather industry in Italy and Sweden and in America, where there's sort of cases, much higher cases of cancers, various cancers happening as well. So there's a lot of kind of around the edges stuff going on with that, as well as, you know, just the product itself.
The negative impact on kind of, you know, that ripple effect of that impact on health, the environment,
Sadly,
and the waste and all that sort of stuff. So listen, are there any sort of websites or direct, because obviously, you know, we could, you know, talk about this all day, but, you know, it might be sort of easier for people if, are there any sort of websites or links or directories that are good places to start, where you can, you know, yourself, you know, make a small change, or, you know, kind of make an alternative decision?
I use a lot of labels to help me, because, you know, I've been spoiled having this business ethics teams helping me when I was at Body Shop to do this, and then suddenly you're on your own and it's you and the suppliers. So I really use labels to help me, and there's lots of labels around. So there's things from
sort of kind of like certification labels.
Yeah. So there's FSC, there's Cradle to Cradle is a really good one. There's not a huge amount to choose from yet, but that's going to get better. But basically, it's a circular economy principle. So kind of keeping things moving around rather than going to landfill, and keeping things at their highest value. But the other nice thing about Cradle to Cradle is they look at the people side. So they're looking at modern slavery and things like that, which I'm sorry to say is something else that goes on in our industry, you know, child labour. So Cradle to Cradle is a great one to look for. Fair trade, there's OEcotex, which is when you're looking at fabrics, if you see that label, it means that they're conscious of the chemicals that are being used, and kind, because all these chemicals go off into rivers that people fish from, and, you know, that
and
goes
fish live in, and
you
know, have you know, organisms and, you know, live in.
And, you know, and then people eat them, and then so OEcotex is a really good one to look out for. Cotton is the most horrific user of water, I've learned, and so Soil Association and GOTS are really good to look at. What's that one?
GOTS, is that, spell that?
Yeah, it stands for the Global Organic Textile Standard, and so if it's a GOTS cotton, it means that it's much reduced water use, and there's some other good stuff in there, probably about people as well. So that's a good one to look for. But I basically have this crib sheet, which
show us, just hold it up so we can see. Hold it up a bit higher, yeah.
So I've updated that for anyone that's watching. So I've put this on my website for people
brilliant.
to download.
And tell us again, what's your website?
So the website is materialiseinteriors.com. And then to get hold of this sheet, you then do /resources, and then you put .html at the end, and that will take you straight through.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So people can go on your website and look at that crib sheet, and then, you know, go into those various sort of accreditations and read more about them, and, you know, kind of, it's brilliant. So that's a good sort of starting resource. But
just to also point out, there's some directories on here to prompt people to have a look at. So, you know, I don't know if you know Kate Watson-Smythe from
Mad About the House.
Yeah, yes. Great. Yeah. So she's set up a directory called Do Less Harm, and it's not monitored. You know, suppliers put their information on it, but it's their opportunity to tell us about less impact products that they might be selling. Yeah. So you kind of got to do your own sort of checking and check that you feel happy.
Again, it's another sort of starting course.
It's a nice little gathering point. I use Ethical Consumer a lot for you know, they're great at kind of guiding you as well, and they have lots of different tables for different things. I mean, they got into paint last year, and that was very useful. They really go into a lot of detail, so they're brilliant. So I'll put those all on the sheet, so I hope it helps people.
Brilliant. Oh, that's really, really helpful. So, I mean, I think for us, in terms of designers, you know, is there a kind of a sort of a kind of an importance list of what we need to think about when we're sourcing something, like, you know, like a piece of furniture, like is the most important thing to look at material or carbon footprint, or, you know, where and how it's sort of come, you know, where it's come from, you know, exploitation, child labor, or is it all of those things?
I think see what your suppliers can tell you, because a lot of suppliers have these kind of good things in the background and they're not telling us. It's you know, so make sure that your regular suppliers don't have these things to tell you anyway. But yeah, kind of all of them really kind of just.
I know, because they're all they all kind of link into each other, and you know, and perhaps, do you think a good sort of place to start maybe for people is to think about, you know, in terms of those kind of things, what matters to them the most? Does you know, kind of supporting local industries, therefore reducing carbon footprint, does that matter most to them, or is child exploitation something that horrifies them, so they really want to sort of, would that be sort of a good place to start?
Yeah, but also when I onboard a client, in part of my briefing process, I have like a tick box exercise of finding out what values are really important to them. Because obviously if you've got their buy-in, then they're kind of happier for you to take a bit longer to source things in that direction. So it's kind of, from your side, I mean, this is completely my passion, and the fact that I'm doing it this way, it makes me get up in the morning and want to work, and it's a huge mental health benefit for feeling that I'm doing my bit.
Absolutely. I completely get that. And
but it's nice to hear what your clients have to say about it as well.
That you're kind of tailoring it to them, because you want clients to own a project, don't you? And you want them to sort of believe in it and believe that they've sort of, you know, been involved in it and had an impact. So I'm just trying to think as well, like, I mean, you gave us some really kind of good tips in terms of, you know, interiors and sourcing stuff like flooring and stuff. But I think for, you know, just kind of generally for kind of anyone watching this, just, you know, what are sort of 3 really simple things that anyone could do right now, you know, in their lives, in terms of making that little tiny change that isn't that difficult? So, you know, in your kind of daily life or whatever, what are sort of 3 things that you could do as a start?
Well, we talked about less but better earlier. This, you know, maybe saving up a bit more to buy that item of clothing or furniture or whatever, kind of find something that has good quality that you're likely to keep for longer, but also find things that you love. Because I think sometimes, I mean, I've really stopped myself from just buying. I'm buying much more mindfully now for myself. You know, if you buy something you love, you're going to keep it for a longer
You cherish
time.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that applies to both our work and our home life, really. And then, you know, this kind of thinking about how you travel, and if you do need to fly, you know, there are carbon offsetting schemes that you can use that aren't horrendously expensive. So, but just kind of, you know, it's nice to explore by train. Last year we had our holiday and we went to Greece by train and ferry.
Wow. How did you do that? Tell me.
It was
It must have been
fantastic.
such an adventure.
It was. And I can't tell you, I mean, parts of it were like, oh, this is boring, but loads of it was just beautiful, looking out of train windows and having picnics on the train. But yeah, we went all the way across France, all the way down Italy, and then caught the ferry from Bari, which is a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So, you know, that journey was very much part of the holiday, rather than going to the airport and hearing loads of screaming kids and everyone shouting at each other and McDonald's and just.
Well, and also I think, and I do think about how interiors has an impact on how you feel, because the airport, it's sort of like just this kind of glorified shed, and it is just this almost airtight building with no air. It's all completely hard. You know, there isn't any plants or really nice walkways. It's just, you know, you're just, from the moment you enter, you're being herded, you know, herded and queued and herded. And it's just, oh, you know, I really don't like traveling by that. I find it really stressful. And then you're herded into this sort of sealed plane, and, you know, it's all kind of quite tight. And, you know, I just really don't like it. So, as you say, maybe building that journey becomes part of the holiday. And how long did it take you, the traveling?
So we stayed overnight in Milan on the way there and on the way back. So yeah, sort of 2 whole days. Oh no, 3 whole days, because we slept on the ferry as well. So
you got the overnight ferry.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's such a lovely way to, and you know, you're traveling through Europe. You know, it's just. And you probably felt like you were in some sort of, you know, 1940s kind of romantic movie. I always feel like that when I'm on trains in Europe, especially like if they're little old-fashioned ones with compartments and stuff.
Yeah.
That just becomes, as you say, that's part of the adventure.
We really enjoyed it. You know, looking at the Adriatic as we're going down Italy. Oh wow, it was just beautiful. You know. And this isn't being worthy. This is just kind of, I'm just telling people that actually give it a go, because it's.
Yeah, I know. I just think that sounds, you know, because you're also seeing, you know, countries from a different perspective. You're not on a, you know, if you're driving, say, through France or Italy or whatever, you're not on a motorway where there's, you know, nice, you know, fields and stuff, but it's just, you know, get there. You're actually on a train, as you say, maybe hugging the side of a mountain, and you've got a completely, and that's, by the time you get to your destination, you've completely sort of decompressed, you've relaxed, you're ready for your holiday, as opposed to, you know, airport and, you know, all of that side of it. I think I might give it a go. I just think, you know, and nobody's driving, and you're not, you know, you're not stressed. You're just, you know, on a you're just chilled.
You've got to be careful about how much stuff you take with you, but that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, because you've got to carry, you know, physically carry it.
I recommend that.
Oh God, I love that idea. So there are your tips. So it was travel. It was, you know, kind of saving up for stuff. And have you got one more?
Well, I mean, I'm not for 1 minute encouraging everyone to be vegan, but if we did just cut down a little bit on our meat and dairy, that again, a little amount adds up if it's a lot of people, because there is a big kind of climate aspect to that. So, you know, and actually I'm eating the most delicious food, and I really, you know, enjoy eating out, and it's it's so easy here in Brighton, but I'm eating very tasty food as well. So it's
It's not
okay
that
over.
difficult.
It's
Yeah.
not
I think you're
horrible.
right about being mindful and eating, you know, even at home cooking, you know, eating less meat, just even maybe once or twice a week, you know. I
Yeah,
do try, but I've got two teenage boys, so, you know, I don't know how far I'm going to get with that. But equally, overnight, they could decide to become vegetarian, and then I'll be the worst person in the world for, you know, eating meat. You
I
know,
know. Yeah,
so you just have to sort
on
of,
that.
you know, kind of gently encourage, you know, just try and be an example, I suppose.
I think it's when people start to buy their own foods. I mean, it certainly was for me when I went away to uni, and it's like, oh, I don't like the look of that. I don't like the price of it,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
kind of, so that might happen. But yeah, it's got to come from you. There's never, can never push these things on
No,
people.
no.
But you know, I just want people to know that there's such delicious food going on.
Yeah, and there are, as you say, it's much easier now than it used to be. There are so many
Oh,
options, and there's always a vegan alternative, you know,
yeah.
in so many places. I mean, in London as well, we're very lucky, you know, it's just kind of everywhere. So they're really good tips. Thank you so much.
Oh,
And yeah, I mean, and I'm sure there's lots of stuff that we could sort of look at. So I did want to ask you, so I think we're kind of coming to the end now. So I've sort of asked everybody this so far, and you know, obviously, you know, we're kind of in lockdown, and we have been, you know, we're kind of coming out of it now, hopefully. But I just wanted to know, because everyone's got a different answer and a different experience. So what did you miss most, you know, when you were locked down? And you know, was there something that you discovered that you enjoyed?
um, because I work from home anyway, and I do quite a lot of projects online anyway. So that wasn't a big shock. Kind of a lot of the lockdown. I mean, the horror of it is just what people have gone through is terrible, and
Yeah.
you know, it's been very stressful and up and downy. But just, you know, on that level, it's not been too different. Except for having my husband home while I'm working, which is a bit, you know, peculiar, but it's been nice to have his company as well. Um, I I've missed hugging my family and friends, obviously, and I've missed going to the hairdressers.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but I've really missed my projects as well, and I've really missed my clients because I was just starting on some exciting
Mm.
things, and I was getting some really perfect inquiries as well, and it's for everything to sort of suddenly stop. I felt
Yeah.
a bit
Well,
in shock.
yeah, I think because, you know, I think, you know, in the industry generally, there was sort of a feeling kind of the last couple of years that there was a little bit of a sort of a, you know, Brexit unknown fear sort of effect on our industry, because people didn't want to, they didn't know what was going to happen. So they didn't want to invest in projects, or they didn't want to do work, or they just kind of were waiting to see. And we had sort of started to come out of that. I think lots of us had felt in January, oh my God, the year's got off to a really good start. And, you know, I'm getting
Yeah.
inquiries, I've got new projects starting. And then, and then all of a sudden, it's felt like it just overnight, it just fell off a cliff. You know,
Yeah,
everything stopped.
very much, very, you know, it felt like that. It just felt like it's just starting to get exciting. Yeah. So
Mm,
it felt a bit of a body blow, you know, it felt a bit of a shock.
mm,
Um, and kind of leaving clients part done as well just made me feel awful. So,
yeah, yeah. Just not
you
having
know,
that face to face and that sort of, um, you know, going to see them, and because you do, you get so kind of, you know, you get so involved in them and their lives, and you know, you know, you get to know a lot about them, and you become friends a lot of the time. So for that to
yeah,
just sort of stop, and everyone's sort of dealing with their own sort of shock and whatever situation they have to deal with, you know, and then we're sort of, you know, we're coming out of it now, thankfully. But so was there anything that you sort of discovered that you enjoyed doing, or that you had time for, or?
I'm sure, like many people, just this whole exploring nearer to home. And I can't tell you, I mean, on and off. I live in the same roads as my parents. I live in the same roads that I
That
grew up in.
you grew up in? Wow.
So this is a long,
So
long time.
so your own personal carbon footprint is tiny.
except Australia and Singapore part, yeah. But so I'm 50 next month.
Ooh!
And so it's a long time.
Yeah.
But so I've just sort of been walking and like, oh, I wonder what happens if I go through that gate or that bridle path, you know, footpath, or discovered all these amazing places near where I live and I didn't know, and views across Brighton that I didn't know existed. You know, the fact that, but you know, when you could only go out for an hour, well, I could get to the seafront and back, but it would be, you know, so, but I can get to the most beautiful view that kind of looks across Brighton, kind of parallel, beautiful. So there's been some lovely discoveries.
Oh, that's really nice, because I think lots of people have discovered that, because, you know, you couldn't sort of kind of get on a train and go into town, or as you say, go into whatever. You had to sort of stay close to home, and I think lots of people discovered places that were right on their doorstep that they didn't know existed. So that's been
and it's really good for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a really nice thing. Yeah.
In that way, it's so good for us to sort of take roots better in where we live and just slow down, talk to your neighbours, check up on your neighbours, do a bit of shopping for them, you know. I think that's been very, very good for us all.
So for you, you know, you're saying your mum and dad, they live on the same road as you. Yeah. So I mean, during lockdown, I mean, were you able to see them, or like, did you sort of have to stand outside and wave, or?
Yeah. So my mum's been shielding, so we, you know, she very much kept her in, but she's been able to bring a chair and sit in the doorway.
Oh, that's really nice. That makes such a huge difference, doesn't it? So the fact that you are only kind of down the road, so even like your hour a day, you could pop down and sort of see your mum. Oh, that's really nice. Yeah, that's been really lovely. You've been very lucky to be able to do that.
I know. I really feel lucky. I know. I mean, my husband went to visit his mum for the first time since the end of February, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it's a hugely long time, you know, and getting people on video, well, that's been quite a good thing to get the older people on.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the same at all, is it? But yeah, it's been very. There's been some good things in there as well as the horror.
I think for everybody. I mean, it's just. I mean, you know, it's a pandemic. It's you know, affected lots of people horrendously, and I think you know, as we sort of go on further through this, we will, you know, kind of find out how many people sort of, you know, that we know who have been, you know, really affected by this, you know, who have lost your loved ones and family members, and you know, as we sort of gather together again, we will, you know, hear these stories and stuff. But listen, I just wanted to move on to our very, very last question, which is, I just wanted to know, because you've worked on some really interesting projects and some really fun projects, what would be your dream project if there was anything you could do? So, you know, what would be your absolutely dream project?
Well, the whole vegan design side of things really kind of guides me to residential and kind of, you know, avoiding feathers down, wool and silk. So I kind of feel very much that I'd love to work on a guest house.
Ooh.
I'd love to work, because, you know, I don't think there is one even in Brighton, which is bonkers. I mean, you know, more of a vegan experience other than having a vegan option for your breakfast, you know, kind of actually having a room that's an interior. I mean, we've got some beautiful hotels here in the UK now there's a Scottish hotel that's entirely cruelty-free specification. There's a hotel in London that's got a suite that is vegan, but I'd really love to work on a guest house. And then I guess my kind of well and fit well side of things, the healthy. I wrote an article recently about the kind of well-being and hotel industry, because there's a massive overlap there. So kind of, I'd love to collaborate and work on maybe an eco resort, you know, that's got but to join. I love collaboration projects where you're working with, you know, like-minded architects and a team. I'd love to do something like that on a bigger scale and bring in all the healthy stuff as well.
Oh God, amazing. Working on a resort where it's
Yeah,
like right to the how they're, you know, each sort of accommodation is built, you know, through to the material, through to the surroundings, through to the architecture and the design and then the interiors. Yeah, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? And then, you know, bringing in lots of wellness things as well, and then the food that's there. And
yeah. So that people have that experience and then they might go home and implement some of those
yeah,
things
or say,
themselves.
where are those, you know, cushions from? They're fantastic. You know, where can I? So it becomes a sort of a showcase of the products that are used that people can then
Yeah,
go and, yeah, that would be amazing.
I think so, because it kind of demystifies the whole thing as well. Once somebody's experienced something, you know, I really am not very fond of the word vegan. I don't like the word. It's kind of a bit. It kind of brings a reaction, you know. But if you can sort of demonstrate that things can still look beautiful and can, you know, and from an animal lover side of things, you know, you can still produce something that looks gorgeous but is
Yeah.
less harmful.
But I
So
think you're absolutely right. I think it's uh, when people experience something and they go, "Oh my God, you know, this feels like leather, or this feels like suede, or this feels really soft, and this is really whatever." Then, you know, there is a kind of law. You know, oh, I could have one of these. You know, that's something that
yeah,
I could do. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, brilliant.
so yeah,
Listen, our time is up. So I just
oh,
wanted to say thank you so much. I mean, you know, I'd love to sort of, well, we'll chat when we meet next time anyway. I'm sure you'll,
oh,
you
love,
know, have more things to tell me, but you've given us loads of stuff to go away and look at and
oh,
research and
good.
hopefully make these changes in our lives. And, you know, you're doing great stuff. You know, you're a real ambassador for, you know, this kind of stuff in the industry. So, you know, well done. You know, keep up the good
Oh,
work.
Nicola, thank you so much for your encouragement. I really, really appreciate it, and it's really lovely to be part of this. And I've really enjoyed the interviews that you've done already, and I'm really happy to be another one of your interviewees. So thanks so much for
Oh, brilliant.
including
No,
me.
thank you. So, listen, take care and
I will,
we'll
and
speak
you.
soon. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.